end this episode.
And he is pleading and begging you right in front of your face to let him go back out there just one more inning. Come on, coach, just one more. Look, I've done all this. I want to finish this out for the team. This is my game.
Of course, the horse wants to do that.
And
the horse always wants to run.
And man, dude, coaches, listen. It tugs at your heart because I was that guy. I think any competitive athlete was that person. And I expect that player to do that. I'd be mad if he isn't yelling at me.
Yeah, I would be mad if he was not frustrated with that decision.
Yeah, I would be mad wholeheartedly.
Let's finish it.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of The Closing Pitch. My name is Spiker Helms, and this is a show about people, culture, and how to create a winning lifestyle. Episode with just me and Dave.
It's been a minute.
I wonder when the last time it was. I have to look back at the actual episode list.
Probably a little over a month, I'm sure.
So there's been a lot going on in our lives.
Oh, yeah.
100%. We are in a challenge right now, the transformation challenge.
We are. I'm feeling
would you like to tell
just a little bit transformed, not all the way.
Would you like to tell the story of how we actually got into the challenge? Or do you not feel comfortable talking about this?
Yeah, no, I'll talk. So
do you want me to set it up for you?
Yes. Well, hold on. I want to know where I'd start it this way. We've been
He got called out. He totally got called out by a president of a company.
Yeah, so we've been talking with a big local company, let's put it that way, and about some possible partnerships. As a company we've been following forever. I know the individual. Well, we've met with the individual who runs the company. And we were in a meeting, and
it's a fitness company.
It's a fitness
by the way.
company, and I was in the meeting. We were trying to talk, and I was trying to sound really, really smart, and I kind of prefaced a question that I shouldn't have, and I said,
"But your response was awesome, though."
I was like,
the response in my head when you said it, I was like, "Oh my god, that was on point. Way to stick up for yourself." And then his response was even that much better.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, well, all right, well, I don't work in that industry, so I was kind of trying to figure out how to relay some messaging and kind of talk verbatim on the way that their business runs and the product, and then
it was a really good question. It wasn't a dumb question where like everyone, you've been in those meetings where it's either you or a person that's part of your team. They end up saying that dumb. Like I remember a couple of times where I asked a dumb question, and everyone like looks at me, and I'm just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
But it was actually a really good question.
It wasn't bad. And then I kind of saw the president of the company kind of sit up in his chair, stare directly into my face, and I
don't think he stared directly in your face. I think he went straight into your eyeballs,
into my soul. And said, "How serious are you?" I was like, "Well, how serious do you want me to be?"
and I was like, "Damn, Dave, that was good."
And it turns out now I'm in an 8-week challenge trying to figure out how his company works and how everything kind of operates and the overall goal. But it's we're almost 2 weeks into it, and it's going really, really well.
He basically said, "Dave, download the app."
Yeah, and if you can't do it, we're not going to talk ever again. And I was like, okay, good thing.
So now we're in a 58-day challenge, me and Dave.
Yep. So it's going good, though.
Yeah, going really well. Now, that's not the topic of the conversation. I just thought it was a really good story. And anyways, what is the topic for today, Dave?
So what was this? Today is Friday.
And the baseball community on Twitter has been
this is Friday
going crazy. A number of podcasts have already talked about it. Yeah. And again, you guys know that we're not really the first movers on a lot of conversations. Right. We like to kind of engulf what's actually happening in the space, and then we're not the hot take people. We're more of just logically looking at it, seeing it, observing it, and really thinking, how would I handle that? So anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. So today is Friday, April 15th, and I believe this happened on Wednesday, if I'm correct. So the 13th of April, Clayton Clayton Kershaw, big left-handed pitcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers, I believe had his first, or maybe it was his second start of the year. Either way, it doesn't matter. And I wasn't watching this game, and then all of a sudden it was a middle of the day game, and I'm in the office, and I look down at my phone, and I'm kind of scrolling through Twitter just on a little break, and I'm seeing like all these people yelling on Twitter because Clayton Kershaw had a perfect game going through 7 innings, and everybody's yelling about him getting pulled from the game, which, there's no context to this. We have no idea, but, we're baseball guys, and we're like, dude, there's only been 22, maybe 23 perfect games ever in Major League history, and he was at 80 pitches. 80 pitches, perfect game. I think he'd K'd like 12 people at the time. I mean, he was cruising. I don't know if I've ever in my time following, watching, being a fan of Major League Baseball and seen a player get pulled at that point because, that's history, right? That is something that only, like I said, 22, 23, it's one of those numbers I know for sure individuals in MLB history have accomplished.
Well, the last time that I could really think I watched on TV was the Jim Joyce debacle at first base. I remember that. And then also I watched...
Didn't Burley have one?
I watched that live.
Yeah, Burley had it, yep.
I remember sitting I was playing college summer baseball in Indiana as my freshman year, and I remember watching Weiss.
Opening day.
Yeah, I remember Weiss jumping up and robbing a home run from I forget who was the hitter, but it was just like one of the best plays I've ever seen, and it was beginning of the season, and it just got you really excited about baseball. But then when you look at it from a team and coach perspective, I understood the reasoning. It made sense. Like right when someone told me that, hey, they pulled Kershaw for a perfect game, like, yeah,
well,
what? It's beginning of the year. Why are we talking about this?
And let me give you a little bit of the way I took it, and I'll kind of so people who are listening who might not understand or have heard the situation, let me kind of tell you how it played out a little bit, and then we'll kind of discuss it.
And I want to be frank, I didn't actually watch.
I didn't watch a single pitch. No, I didn't watch a single bit. I just kind of followed it and seen how the storylines kind of played out, and it's been very interesting. So it started out, he gets pulled and no one knows. Fans don't know. Think about all the 45,000 people at Dodger. I think it was at Dodger Stadium. They're like, what in the world? And then you can imagine on social media, the commentators don't know. The people on ESPN don't know. No one has a clue. All the beat writers, I saw a tweet basically from one of the big beat writers in MLB, Jeff Passan, who he's always big on the trades and everything else. And, he rightfully so, nobody knows at this point, but we're all like kind of bashing Dave Roberts and the Dodgers because you're like, you can't take him out.
It's kind of funny because he's the one that wrote the book on arm injuries.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
So it's like you'd think that he would take the side of pulling the player.
Yeah, 100%. And so you just kind of see comment after comment after comment, kind of everybody, bashing it, because everyone wants to see history, right? And the one thing, the caveat to this whole deal was there was a video that went live of Kershaw coming out of the game, okay, and walking through the dugout, high-fiving, shaking hands, and hugging people, his teammates, which to me looked like he was at peace with the decision. So I knew there had to be more to this, right? And what I did, I ran over to Pratt's office over here. Evan Pratt, who works with us, who's been around the game way longer than I have. Little side note, just got introduced into the St. Louis Amateur Baseball Hall of Fame, which is kind of cool. But I went over to his office, and I was like, Pratt, Kershaw just got pulled after the 7th. 80 pitches, 12 Ks, perfect game. What are we doing? And I just yelled. I was yelling, and he was kind of like, well, Dave, it is early in the season. I'm like, yeah, it's a perfect game. Who cares? And I went total baseball fan. I put down my coaching card. I put down the card that says
straight
hey, Dave,
fanboy came out.
You've been around this game a little bit. You should know better. No, I was straight angry fan. I was like, what are we doing? And Pratt kind of calmed me down, and he was like, no, listen, you never know. You don't know maybe Dave Roberts asked him. Maybe Dave Roberts talked to him, which actually he did.
But I mean, the veteran is probably because the ego's probably not there anymore. It's more of, okay, yeah, this makes sense. I'm in it for championships. I'm in it to go to the World Series. I'm in it to, I know that the game in April it's important, but it's not as important because there's going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, there's more teams now in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it's even more irrelevant the season.
Right.
So it's more of the push.
Right.
If you did this in September,
Right,
and it's a wild card situation, yeah, we got something here. You're staying in that game.
Well, and that kind of takes you to what then transcribed after, okay, and transpired after. Kershaw comes out to the media after the game and basically was like, no, I went to Dave, Coach Roberts, the head coach of the Dodgers, and said after the 6th, he said, and I don't know where his pitch count was after the 6th, but he goes, yep, 85 pitches, we're done. That was his set limit going into that game. He goes, I don't care what the situation is. I know what the situation is. I don't care what it is after this next inning. 85 pitches and we're done. And he got to 80 after the 7th, and Dave was like, you sure? And he goes, yep. Because he said, like what you just said, there's bigger picture options.
And this is a very good lesson for youth coaches that throw a pitcher over 100 pitches in the first week.
Well, yeah,
this is a major league pitcher.
Yeah.
85 pitches set.
And he talked about it too, because they have team goals, and he fits in the team. He's a part of the team. And so he mentioned that, yes, of course, it'd be nice to go for a perfect game. And if he was more stretched out and pitch count build up ready, and this was July, I bet you're talking a totally different story at that moment. I think he goes for it, right? But it's April, and he had a short spring training. He's getting a little older. He knows his body. He knows what he's trying to accomplish this year. He's trying to get another ring. He's doing all these things, and he wants to fit within the team model. And his exact phrase was, I'm not trying to be selfish here. That's a selfish play, because you never know. He can go out there and run himself out another 45 pitches and feel some stressful innings and get it done, but you don't know the ramifications that has later on in the season. So, it came out like that, and then my favorite, and I got to pull this up real quick, because if you don't follow Mr. Tom House, one of the pitching legends of baseball,
coached at USC, right?
Yeah, I mean, unbelievable pitching coach. He had
he's probably the best way to describe him is he was driveline before driveline.
Yeah,
he just came out. He came out with some crazy stuff back in the day, and then a lot of people thought he was kind of nuts. What are you doing? Oh yeah. But he kind of pushed the envelope, and driveline kind of does the same thing nowadays. So, anyways, go ahead.
He's pretty fantastic, and if you don't follow him on Twitter, he's worth a follow. It's at Tom House on Twitter, but he came out with what I thought was the tweet of the century right after that, where he says, Clayton Kershaw getting pulled from a perfect game through 7 innings is ultimately good for the game of youth baseball.
I didn't even know he said that.
How many coaches and families just saw a big league team pull or put a pitcher's health, arm care, and pitch count above all else? I think it's a good thing.
100%.
And he came out with that before Kershaw said anything.
Another way of thinking about it is the coach is like the jockey, and he's got to make sure that the horses are right.
Yeah.
For sure. You can't just go out there and just run the horses rampant.
Let me say something on Dave Roberts' side too. I don't think he's gotten enough credit here. And luckily, I think Clayton took the decision out of his hands.
Well, he won't get the credit. If it was a problem, he would get
right.
All the fans would be on him like crazy. Let's just say hypothetically the Dodgers end up losing that game. People would be going at Dave Roberts' throat.
Well, I'm going to put it this way, because I've been in this situation a bunch as a coach. Okay. And this one's arguably one of the toughest things that I ever have to deal with, right? Is when I have a pitcher who's throwing one of the games of his life, and he's either got a no-hitter, he's doing all these things, right? And his pitch count is right at or slightly exceeding where he has or where he's supposed to go from a a guidelines perspective, or where we just know he can go. All right, and he is pleading and begging you right in front of your face to let him go back out there just one more inning. Come on, coach, just one more. Look, I've done all this. I want to finish this out for the team. This is my game.
Of course, the horse wants to do that,
and
the horse always wants to run.
And man, dude, coaches, listen, it tugs at your heart, because I was that guy. I think any competitive athlete was that person, and I expect that player to do that. I'd be mad if he isn't yelling at me.
Yeah, I would be mad if he was not frustrated with that decision.
Yeah, I would be mad wholeheartedly. And honest to God, I have absolutely made the mistake of letting a player go back out there. All right? And it's very rarely ever works out in my favor, where he gets like a 6-pitch inning and finishes the game, and I'm like, woo, it worked out really well. It never does. And I've kind of learned to that point that, and I don't necessarily say it to the player in that heat of the moment, because I'll say, listen, Johnny, you got us this far. Thank you. You did a great job. All right, your health's more important. We'll talk about it after the game, but this is we're gonna go to Steve now. He's gonna get you.
It's like high school. It's like high schools. High schools will throw dudes beginning of the year. And those games don't matter.
Right.
They think conference is everything. It's like, dude, conference sucks. Let's just be real. It's all about state championships.
Truth be told, I don't know how you can put next to almost any game matters that much. That's your health. I mean, let's talk about long-term ramifications of a lot of those injuries. What if you damage a nerve? What if you do certain things that you might not be able to pick something up for the rest of your life? I mean, there's things that can happen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, luckily we're talking about an arm, and there's a lot of things in the arm that can be fixed. We're not talking about the heart and all kinds of other stuff that's more damaging. But
I guess the question would be at what point does it make sense to actually just keep throwing a dude?
I mean, when you're 40 years old, Adam Wainwright on the mound.
It's a Hollywood story, right?
You don't care.
It's the Hollywood story.
And you literally say, I'm going to throw my arm out, and I don't care.
Yeah, it's Kevin Costner, love of the game.
We don't.
It's that's probably the only point where it actually, it's worth going out there.
We don't deal with those athletes. Every athlete we ever work with has a future. And I don't want to be the last coach that coaches them. That is something that always is in the back of my head when making those decisions, that I don't want your career to end under Coach Berkby. That's not my game.
And it's impossible. And here's the thing: it's impossible to avoid injury.
Sure,
it's literally impossible. But can you control the can you control the environments to make the probability less? Definitely.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean you can limit. You can limit the chances. You can't get rid of them, but you can limit. Or you can give them more chances. You can get the probability of injury higher. So there's definitely ways to monitor that. But I go back to that decision that coaches have to make, and I always think, man, if you have in the back of your head the player's future in every decision you do, you're gonna get yelled at. And if you're a youth coach and you do that, you better be prepared for Mama Bear and Papa Bear to be coming to you after the game saying, how dare you take my son out of that situation? You better be okay with that. I am.
I would rather have that conversation than the opposite of when the kid gets injured.
Right.
Because then I could be honest with him, well, if you want your kid to be in that situation, I guess this team's not for you.
But it's also
because I'm not going to run him out there.
I'm okay with it being a no-win situation for the coach, knowing that at the end of the day I can put my head on my pillow and that I did not put that kid at further risk for injury. Because let's say the scenario's out loud. You put the kid back out there, he gets injured, he's out for the rest of the season. What are they going to say to you then? Yep. Okay.
But it's not even that. It's because it's not going to happen immediate. It could happen immediate.
It could happen immediate. It's probably long term.
But long term, it's not 6th grade. Oh, it's okay. He's going to be fine. It's when he's 15 or 16, that's when those injuries start popping up. It doesn't happen right away. So if you're 12 and 13 and you're running dudes out there and just keep running them out there and they throw 100 pitches each time, when they get to 15, 16, something's going to pop up.
Well, think of this story. This story's happened a million times. Everybody talks about that player that, I hear it all the time from youth coaches, and it's fine. I'm glad I hear it, but I hear all the time, dude, this guy is so good. You should see Tim play. He is ridiculous. Best 12-year-old I've ever seen, right? And Tim gets out there, and Tim throws 80 innings every year because Tim can just beat everyone at that age. And then all of a sudden, Tim does it again at 13. Tim's pretty good still, but, he's getting caught up to. It's crazy. I don't know how these guys are, catching up to him. I don't know. And then 14, 15, Tim's average. Tim doesn't have the juice he used to in his arm. Tim's kind of the same guy, if not a little less, because Tim's been used and abused to win 12 and 13 and 14U games. And I could play the same thing on the high school side. I'm not trying to bash youth coaches. I can say the same thing from a high school standpoint. The high school coaches or high school travel coaches use and abuse the top arms that they have. And then, I'm talking to Pratt, the 26-year-old Division I assistant coach vet who, they're always talking, well, what's he going to be when he gets to me?
Yeah.
I have a great story about a dude that, this was like my second or third year coaching. We were down at the University of Arkansas Little Rock at Division I mid-major. And we were watching the game before, and the pitcher on this one team was just lighting the world on fire. The dude was really, really, really good. And I didn't know anything about him. No clue. I just knew he was really good. He had a lot of velocity, he had a lot of pitchability. He was a stud. And then you keep watching the game, and it's like the seventh inning, and then it goes into extras. It's in the eighth. He's still in. And I'm kind of thinking back in my head, I'm like, man, some of those innings, he's striking out a lot of dudes, so he's going deep in counts. His pitch count's got to be way up there. Little do I know, I find out that he threw 130, 40 pitches in that game. He was a commit to that school. He was already committed to Arkansas Little Rock.
And they were doing it at Arkansas Little Rock?
In front of the coaches. Their coach walks over to the parents of that kid and goes, this will be the last, I think he said this verbatim, this will be the last time you probably play for that team, or we're probably going to drop him because I don't know what I'm going to get.
I don't blame him.
Your son will not show up at school. If this is how he's used every time, your son will not show up here in the same fashion that we recruit in. We want the guy we recruited, not the guy that he's going to be if this is what's going to happen.
Because it's damaged goods at that point, right?
And so I'll never forget hearing that because I talked to that coach because, we played the next game and he comes over to the dugout and you could tell he was kind of, angry, right? And, hey, coach, you got to line up this and that. I'm like, yeah. And he goes, did you watch that game? And I go, yeah. I mean, that pitcher was pretty good, but he threw a lot. And the coach was like, yeah, he's our commit. I had to go tell his parents, and that's how I knew the story. And I'm like, oh, my gosh.
Why do you think coaches get to that point where they just...
Ego wins.
Do you think do you think it's like ego? Do you think it's obviously wins, but do you think it's like you get lost in the moment?
I think it can.
I've never been in that. I've never been there where I've been pressured to put the kid back out there.
I'll put it this way. I think there's three distinct types. I think there's one coach. There's number one, a coach that maybe might be oblivious to the entire situation. Okay, and not in a bad way, or not not just purposely not paying attention to it. But
just the knowledge base isn't there.
Have the knowledge and might not understand.
That would make sense.
Because I do talk to a lot of parents and they're like, yeah, Johnny threw X amount. Is that bad? And I'm like, it's not good.
Well, it's hard because if you haven't been a pitcher, you don't know what that feeling is like.
Yeah.
If you don't know what a feeling is like, then you're not going to be able to make the better decision. Like I was a pitcher in high school. I was abused, right? I was abused in youth as well. So again, not to the problems of the coaches because there was not that much information out there at the time, but also I was one of those guys that was a tough competitor. Like, you're not taking me out of this freaking game. Bro, you're not taking me out.
Right.
I've got this team down, but just I have a one hitter right now.
Right.
There's no way.
Yeah. I was the same way. Which again, I like on my players, but 2, you have the coach that can't say no to a kid, that will just get run over by the players, run over by the parents, that always tries to do the right thing too much for them, like always like, yeah, no, go on back out there, but we're going to have a short leash on you and things like that because and I feel for the coach because he wants to do right by the kid, but he's ultimately doing wrong. He
you know what? But you know what solves that though is words are weak, actions are strong. So being able to set the precedence like right during when it happens, like I remember I forgot when this was, but it was one of our junior college games. Our coach came out and literally in the fall grabs the ball out of the pitcher, and the pitcher was like, "You're not taking me out," and like the coach just like took the ball and just stared at him. And the kid was like, "You're not taking me out." And he just stared at him the whole time. He's like, Are you going to leave? And the kid was like, "Oh," and then just left. I think it's just taking the action and just literally being a stone wall. I'm like, your seat's over there, bud.
Yeah, 100%. And my number 3 is going back. It's the ego guy, and those dudes just, there's not many, thank goodness. Yeah. I don't run across very many, and I haven't seen many, but, there are coaches, for right or wrong, I think wrong, in my opinion, but they're all about the wins, the losses. They're talking about, 2 years ago our record was 65-4 and this and that, and all hanging on the trophies, and really it'll just kind of run through kids left and right to get whatever they think the team. Yeah, it's just, and that's not right. That's not. I couldn't tell you what my career record as a coach is, and I really don't. I don't want to say I don't care. Everyone's competitive. Everyone wants to win, and that's sure nice, right? I can tell you how many people we've had to go on to college. I can tell you a lot of the kids that I've impacted that have had good experiences in high school and youth. I can't tell you my wins.
I think the thing that I really care about is like if alumni contacts me on his own, not me contacting him, but if they contact me out of the blue because they feel comfortable with me, that's a sign that I was a decent coach,
right?
Not an amazing coach, but just a decent coach enough to create a relationship with somebody to reach back out. And this is not just players that are still playing. These are guys that aren't playing and they just have a question. They're like, "Hey, I need help with X. How did you do it? I need this information. What do you know?" And then I'll be honest. I'm like, "Dude, I don't know.
Right.
Like maybe look this way."
Right.
So I think the coach tailoring it to wins and losses. It's just like, yeah, we won a few games. It was fun. But at the end of the day, like it's more about the relationship than about the win. Like they're not gonna come back in here like, "Hey, remember with 15U," and dab us up and be like, we rocked that shit.
No,
not
like, at all.
They don't care.
Not at all.
They don't care. They just want. Like, you're gonna have that nostalgia. You're gonna have like those moments. Like Z contacted me and we had this 45-minute conversation of just like baseball, like strategy and tactics, and then literally we just started sharing stories of things that happened outside of the game.
Which is awesome. Which is what you want, right? It's everything,
100%.
The relationships for life. So,
anything else on this topic?
I don't know. I guess I just kind of leave this topic because it's one of those controversial ones. I'm sure there are people on the other end listening to this that are being like, it's 2 innings, guys. Let him go for it, right? What are we talking about? And I can see your point. I can also see the other point. I just think it's good conversation to have put out there that there's a million different reasons. And I will say I love Tom House's quote on it because it gives a lot of youth amateur coaches and program directors and good people some ammo to be like, hey, listen, look what Clayton Kershaw did. He gave up an opportunity at MLB history, which I don't know, maybe he regrets one day, I don't know, to keep himself more healthy and hopefully give his team a chance down the road this year to win another title.
He won't regret it if he's in September and he's able to go in and just dominate.
Sure.
He's not going to regret it.
I don't think so either. I think those guys are so smart and just know themselves so well that they wouldn't. So, but yeah, it's a polarizing topic that I'm glad we had a chance to talk about.
Guys, what are your thoughts on this? What type of coach are you? Do you think that Kershaw should have gone the other two and gone into MLB history, or do you think that he played it outright? Give us your thoughts. Please subscribe to the channel. Give us a 5-star review. That helps us in the long run. We enjoy you listening. And until next time, see ya.
See you guys.